Many of you listeners and viewers are currently using job management tools for your field techs, which is fantastic. Keep doing that, it's brilliant. However, as your business grows, you will eventually discover that you need better management systems within your office to manage the operations. Today's podcast is the final episode of the series titled Building a Scalable Business That Doesn't Involve You. This episode is using Office Project Management to streamline your operations. If you missed the previous two episodes, do yourself a favor, go back and check them out. It will make a lot more sense out of this episode. To get notified of upcoming videos, hit that subscribe button and turn your notifications on. And please be sure to share this video with someone else, someone that would get value out of it. Help us spread the word. Hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome back to the SiteShed podcast. You're joining us today for part 3 of the Building a Scalable Business That Does Not Involve You series that I'm conducting with Justin Smith from Work Management Tools. Justin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back.
Right, this has been a great series, something that's something I'm very passionate about, something that's very close to home. In the first episode, we were talking, and for you guys that are just tuning in to part 3 here, I encourage you just go back and listen to part 1 and 2 first, because part 3 will bring those conversations full circle. In the first episode, we were talking about where to start in relation to business systems. In the second episode, we were talking about how to make yourself redundant within your business. And in this episode, we're talking about using Office Project Management to streamline your operations. So these are all really important parts of the conversation around systemizing your business, things that I've gone through practically myself, and things that you guys inevitably will go through yourself if you're not already. So it's been a great series. Thank you so much for all your insight, Justin, in relation to these things. And for you guys out there, so Justin is a fractional project manager. He works with us in our business, and he's basically helping us roll out and improve our project management space, which we have quite a complex setup. So if you are in a situation where you would like to get some help with your project management system, I thoroughly encourage you to reach out to Justin, and you can get access to Justin through the show notes. All of his links to his website and his email and everything will be over there. So head across to the siteshed.com, click on search Justin in the search bar there, and you'll get access to his podcasts. And he's also very generously offered free training for basically ClickUp training, which is a software that we use for project management. Go and check that out. It's really, really useful. Anyway, Justin, welcome back. Thank you again once for joining us. So as I mentioned, this is sort of where we bring things full circle using Office Project Management to, streamline our operations. A lot of the guys out there, a lot of people that are watching this will be familiar with like field-based project management, job management, that kind of stuff. They'll have tools, their Tradify, ServiceMate, Simpro, Aeroflows, all these amazing tools which do a fantastic job. But I suppose maybe you can help better define the difference between, what those tools are designed to do and like project management from a field perspective, and then what we're going to be talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So I work with what I call a work management system. And so that actually covers both. So it's both field and office. So I often have clients who I'm helping them with workflows around both. I'd probably define the difference. So I guess in the simplest terms, Office Project Management is all the stuff that's not directly for the client. So you usually sell a service and you help a client with something. And so you're painting walls, you're building houses, you're fixing plumbing, whatever you're doing. And that's the core service. But that's not enough to make a business run. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, stuff that the client doesn't care about. So that's kind of like your HR, your invoicing, your marketing, your all the other bits and pieces that need to happen. And they would all be considered Office project management. And it's really easy in business to focus on the bit that makes the money come in, like actually providing the service. And it's often the bit that we're best at as well. It's why we started the business. So it's easy to focus on that. And then all the other stuff just feels really extra or overwhelming. And we either let it go or get super it kind of ruins our quality of life. And so what office project management should do is kind of have that all really well organized, so it's easy to keep on top of it all without stress. And that might be that we're doing it ourselves. It presents itself to us at the right time in the right format so that we can easily do it. Or it might be that we have it well systemized so we can have someone else do it, as we mentioned in the last episode. So that would be my definition. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And so, yeah. And as I said, there's very often, and when guys, when guys start out, rightfully so, they should anyway, they should go get themselves set up with a job management tool or something to help them run their jobs better. As inevitably your business grows, if that's what you want to do, of course, you'll reach a point where you're like, well, we actually need a similar sort of delivery for the team that's sitting in the office now, because the guys out in the field are sweet. They're just doing what they need to do, and they're using the tool to help them with that. So you've got to equip the whole business with similar sort of things. That's been my experience anyway. There's always been a bit of a disconnect. Although some people are using these tools, to quite efficiently, to manage both. But I suppose inevitably you'll find as the business does grow, it will require more things. It will require, more processes, and it's very unlikely that you're going to find one tool that will do everything, sadly.
Yeah.
So the conversation that we're having today really is about, okay, well, let's talk more now to, like, we'll say, for example, that you have got the on-site stuff dialed in. You're using tech tools, whatever it is. But now we're going to talk about, okay, well, then how do we start applying that same mindset to what happens from an office managerial perspective? Some of those common areas, as Justin alluded to, may be, okay, well, what's our sales process? What are our sales techs following? What are our call takers, taking? What's the process that our dispatch team need to follow? What's the accounts receivable? What are they responsible for? What are they doing? Or the entire finance department, perhaps. What's our social media person doing? What are they doing for our what are their tasks? What are their obligations? What are they accountable for? So on and so forth, right? So just taking the focus off the guys out there swinging hammers and climbing ladders, and putting the focus now into, okay, well, like Justin said, what's running the business? What's the stuff here that the clients can't see but is important to the delivery of the service?
Yep.
Okay, so where do we start with this? I mean, I suppose essentially we've got to figure out, well, like, again, tying back to, I suppose, what we've spoken about in the other episodes, like, where are the bottlenecks? Like, where do you actually start?
Yeah, well, I guess where I start is I look for the signs of, is our work management effective or not? And so I'll be saying work management system a lot. It's my word for the whole thing. And whether it's functioning, it is a system, or if it's kind of falling apart. And everyone has a work management system. It might be that your work management system involves just keeping everything in your head and then yelling at people. That is a work management system. It's just not a great one. We want to create one that is much more effective, that allows you to have things run smoothly, have you go home at night and not be stressed out, and to go on holiday when you need to. It should be outside of you, and it should run without you. So the key signs of an effective work management system that I look at is that everyone knows where to look to find what they need to do. It's really clear what is theirs, what is assigned to them, and what needs to be done, and how to do it as well. We're talking about SOPs in the last episode. It's clear what steps need to be taken to complete the task, and also to reflect that in the system. Now, a lot of people are really good at completing a task, and then no one else knows that it's done, and that can cause a lot of problems as well. Yeah. It's possible for management to easily see an overview of all the work. You'll know that one really well, and to check on its health and zero in on any risks. And then all actions within the system are as light, unobjectionable, and easy to do as possible. Right? We're talking about adoption and getting people to actually use this thing, because if people don't use it and don't update it, then management ends up without any overview. And the final point is everyone uses it, which is adoption. So those are the kind of things I start to look at.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I know, when we initially started rolling these things out, we realized, and this is, I believe, quite a common, you have more insight to this than I would, but we realized that there was one people trying to do the one task, more than one person trying to do the one task, and which we hadn't really figured out until it was a documented step in a checklist that got assigned to someone, and somebody was like, "Hang on, that's what I've been doing." And they're like, "I've been doing it," and someone was like, "Oh, I did that. I've been doing that one as well." And you're like, "What?" So everyone's been trying to do the same thing, and because we hadn't clearly defined the step, I mean, everyone knew the step, but no one really knew that it was their responsibility. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, how much is this? How much of this is going on in the business? Like, and I mean, I'm guessing you see that all the time, but like that's a really classic example of inefficiency, and duplication, where that's unnecessary, which is why we said in the previous episode, define, if you're trying to remove yourself or, remove things from other team members, define what those things are, because then you can assign that thing to someone else. But I really like that breakdown.
Clarity is a lot of what I do is just make things clear. Not make things clear right now, but also make a system of keeping things clear. Because I do help people improve their processes and such, but oftentimes if I just make things clear for them, like the improvement is obvious. Like it just comes, it's like, oh, well, of course we're going to do this because now it's really obvious that we need to do that. So creating clarity and systems to maintain clarity is a lot of what I end up doing.
Yeah, and on that topic, I think as well, importantly, the big advantage that we see of having this, project management, office project management in place is like things aren't left to the last minute, where in the past you'd be like, oh man, I got to get that thing out before the end of the day. Like that doesn't really happen now because, we know at the beginning of the month that something's got to be out by the end of the month, and, it will, like things can be worked on throughout the month to make sure that things are done in time, so it mitigates a lot of those. I mean, it's not 100% fail safe. Don't get me wrong. It's always just like, oh man, I've got to do this. Sure, whatever. But like the point I'm trying to make is overall, like as your business grows, for better or worse, things will compound, So defining these things, getting people following the processes and getting things taking action along the way, it's a great way to mitigate those issues,
Yep.
And it reduces stress. Like at the end of the month, if you've got all these things that you've forgotten you had to do, like no one wants that, whereas if they're progressively achieved throughout the month, especially your team members as well, consider them, like they don't want to be in that situation either. So, I think this is one thing that project management, office project management, very, very, very much will help you streamline.
Yeah. And people often have a negative perception of project management, but it's actually, there's one part of what you're just saying that it's really common to not have what I call win conditions in business. If you're a gamer, you might be familiar with this, the thing that you know for sure that you crushed it. And oftentimes in business, we have this like unending list of work for ourselves and also for our staff, and they just never get to win. Like there's always more to do. There's always, something that could have been done better. By having really clear expectations of this is yours, this is what needs to be done, and this is when it needs to be done by, then people can actually win. Like people can actually achieve that because it's clear what it is they need to achieve. And so it's really psychologically reinforcing for people to actually be able to get a win and to know that they're good at their job. People will do a lot to know that they're good at their job.
Yeah, sure. And on that note, I mean, this is something that we're sort of heading towards now within our business. You're helping us with. It's understanding like capacity and workload, and like being realistic about it. Yep. Because once you've got these things defined, and if things are not getting done, like it puts you in a position to figure out, well, why are these things not getting done? Is it a competency issue? Is it like the person that we've got in this position are they slacking off? Are they not competent? Do they not understand it? Are they under-resourced? Do they need help? Do they need team members? Like until you've sort of got those things defined, it makes it very hard to ascertain what the actual problem is.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's kind of where we're at with our business now as well. Like we're like, okay, well then how do we make sure that people are operating in their sweet spot and they're busy, but they're not too busy that they can't get done the thing that needs to be done in order to achieve the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this as well, like this might seem like quite a macro conversation for you guys out there that are running a small business, but I will say this: as your business does grow and as it evolves, and some of you may have experienced this already. If you haven't, you will. Like your position within your business will change formidably, and it will change in accordance to what the business is asking from you. For example, last year, pretty much the entire year, I spent developing recruitment systems for the business, like building out project management so that we could, manage our recruitment. And just I know you help with that, but like that's what my role was last year. And this year, it's moved more into, sales and content back into where I want to be. But I had to do that thing so that I could process it out, so that I could now move into this other area. And now I'm over here and I'm building systems around our sales department so that I can remove myself from that as well. And I can focus more specifically in the content and product, right? So your position within your business will change and evolve as your business grows. There's nothing wrong with that, but like understanding or having the office management, like project management systems in place enable you to do that, enable you to basically step in, set things up, outsource things, and then move on to the next thing. And piece by piece, whether you're doing it to remove yourself from things or whether you're doing it just so that you can scale that part of the business so that, you can bring team members in to facilitate that growth, whatever. The point is you got to do it. You got to manage it, right? So I think that's a really powerful thing that you guys, if you haven't yet had the experience, you will inevitably.
And I think for those parts that you don't really want to be doing long term, it's really about you get the clarity and then you get the systems and then you're done. And as long as you've got people that can run those systems, then you can step back out of it. But if you don't get to clarity or systems, then you get stuck in it and you're now doing that thing forever.
Yeah, correct. And like anything, like once you document these things and you find better ways of doing it, then what you inevitably are improving efficiency, right? So until you've got those things documented and you've got your team following something, like you would hope that, the checklist that, your team sets up tomorrow, in 2 months' time, they're doing it in a fraction of the time because they're getting more efficient at it. They're finding better ways to do it, which is great because it means they've got more resource, right? And you can give them more things to do. So, but it's very hard to define that unless you're tracking it.
And unless you have a system, having a system means that each one of those improvements gets locked in. It's now permanent. Whereas if you don't have a system, people will do something better and then forget or don't tell anyone else. And it just gets lost.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I would say this is probably the point where, although in the last couple of episodes we've sort of geared ourselves towards saying, well, you know what, it doesn't matter, do it on a whiteboard or, whatever. I would say this is the point in the conversation where business owners, you should think, okay, I should be adopting technology to do this because technology is an evolution of improving these things. Like there are tools out there that will do it. Like we use ClickUp. Justin is a ClickUp expert. Like it doesn't, again, I'm not necessarily saying that ClickUp is the right tool, but I'm saying this is the point in the conversation where you should be thinking, okay, if I'm going to do this effectively and efficiently, what's the path of least resistance? And I can guarantee that it's going to involve technology.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out that technology doesn't need to be complicated. So I use ClickUp. ClickUp has a lot of power and you can make just a real mess of it by trying to use too much. And I'm really against that, even though it is a big, powerful software. I mean, it's in the greater scheme of things, it's actually mid-powered because there are some horrendously large things out there. Yeah. But even then, I still say, look, just keep it simple. I often will have people use far fewer features than they think they need to, because it's about getting the job done and keeping it simple enough for everyone to use easily. And so it can, even though it's software, it's new, it's technology, whatever, you might not be familiar with that. It doesn't need to be hard. It can be actually really quite simple.
Yeah, it's so easy to slip into like technology paralysis, especially with tech like ClickUp. I mean, before that I used to use one called Podio, and it was, I mean, like it was great. It was like a clean slate, but then the bad thing about it was a clean slate, and like
Yep.
I think, one of the big things one of the big obstacles that I think most people have with technology is just getting started with the right framework and having the foundation sort of, okay, this is this, and building on it instead of like trying to come up with it themselves, which is why I'd say to you guys out there, go and get hold of, Justin's training. He's probably got something in there on that, or speak to someone like Justin that can actually help you with the foundation. Because once you understand it, once the foundation's built, it makes it a lot easier to build on. But like trying to come up with that stuff yourself, like Justin said, it can very often end up in just a bunch of mess. We did it. Like there was a bunch of mess in there, and then over time, we refined it, and it's okay. It's pretty good now, but I mean, it could probably be better. Which is, I mean, that's always the case, right?
I don't know if we want to go through them, but I do have a set of how do we get there steps.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is essentially what I do. This is my bread and butter. I help people with this, taking their kind of, usually they'll have their processes. They'll kind of know what they do. Maybe they have them written out, maybe they don't. And now they need to put them into some sort of method or platform that's going to run them smoothly. And so one of the big points that I tend to talk to people about first is no trash tasks. So what that means is that everything that goes into the system is important enough that we need to do it, usually within the next month or so. Sometimes we can separate out and say, okay, here's a list of tasks that are, big future ones, and we'll keep that separate. That's fine. But it's really important that we don't have any old tasks in there, any unused, unclear, unimportant, or reference information can be okay, but it needs to be separated. But everything in there should be as simple, clean, and only what matters. It's really common for people to have a system like this and kind of chuck in every old idea, and then like these random ideas that we may never action are mixed in with like things that must be done tomorrow. And it just it makes it really hard to use. So yeah, and my second point is make it real. It's related. In my experience, people are excellent bullshit detectors. Anything fake or unimportant will be treated as such. And if there are a number of those things in the system, the entire system will be considered a housing place for unimportant bullshit. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear here. Apologies if not.
Yeah, swear away.
Okay,
the Tradies.
Yeah,
I love F-bombs.
Yeah, so keep everything significant. And what that means is that you're allowed to keep it smaller and simpler. You don't have to have a million tasks in your work management system. It can be, you might have 10 because those are the only important things. And that's still worth it because you can get everyone focused on those 10 tasks. Normally a bit more than that. You'll probably end up with somewhere between, 50 and 100 tasks for a small to medium business.
I mean, and or you will find exactly it'll evolve, right? Like if we look at our web development checklist, like when it started, it was 20, 30 steps, and now it's hundreds, right? It's just evolved into something. As you learn something, how can we fix this problem? Put a step in, done. And that will always happen.
Yep. Yeah, and once you've grown organically to it, then your people will understand each step, and that works really well. What doesn't work well is trying to jump to complexity immediately because it doesn't make sense. So definitely start small and grow, and then everyone will be more okay with it. Everyone will understand it, and hopefully it'll be documented as you go, and so it'll be easy to keep track of. Cool. Yeah, another big one is yeah.
No, I was going to say, was that the steps? But obviously not. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I've got, so I guess these aren't steps. They're just kind of things to keep in mind, really.
Sure.
But another one is group work properly. So have things that are similar grouped together. So it's really easy to understand where things are. We definitely don't want a bunch of stuff mixed in together. So it's hard to understand, okay, what actually are the items in this list? We're going to separate things out. Makes it easier for awareness, for tidiness, and also ease of navigation and ease of reporting. So a well-organized thing can be reported on, whereas a messy one can't be because you can't pull any useful information out of it because too many different things are mixed together. So that's important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And on a slight segue,
Mm-hmm.
another good thing about ClickUp is it does have a reporting dashboard sort of feature to it. So
Yeah.
not only can you have your checklists and your processes within there, to an extent, you can also have all your reporting based in the same platform sometimes. So it is useful.
Yeah. And the more organized things are, the easier it is to use those features and pull kind of
Right.
useful data out of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, as I said before, like your evolution of your role within your business, like as you evolve and as you start delegating things to other people, the things that you will be interested in will be reporting because you'll be like, well,
Mm.
they're doing the thing. Show me the report on it. Like, and that sort of becomes your role in management. Then, like, is this department performing effectively or whatever, So anyway, sorry, back to you.
Mm. So yeah, the last three. First one is minimize speed bumps. So minimize the things your team has to do to get the job done, in the software particularly. So the least number of places they have to go, things they have to find, things they have to remember, the better. So we're trying to keep it real simple, real easy. Another way of saying that is reduce the friction. The more friction that there is,
Mm-hmm.
the less likely people are going to do it, and the more they'll delay it, put it off, forget about it. And it makes the whole system fall apart because it's not up to date. So simple as possible, as fewer steps as possible. Then again, this one's, some people this is really natural for, some people find this tricky, particularly in the beginning, is we want to make it real again in terms of consequences. We want to have due dates actually matter. If we say this needs to be done by this time, it needs to actually mean something. And that means that if it doesn't happen, that doesn't need to be anything crazy, but that needs to be identified and dealt with. So that might be saying, hey, why isn't this done? Did you not have the right resources? Did something go wrong? Like what happened? So that people know that at least attention is paid to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be any more than that. But if people realize that no one cares about the due dates being passed or things not getting done on time, then they'll start not caring about it. So there needs to be a consequence.
And that's accountability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one, and that's. I mean, if I can encourage you guys from the beginning to start with like as tricky as that might sound, if you can get that framework down and grow your project management space with accountability in mind, whether it's your own accountability or whether it's specific team members' accountability or all of the above, man, it will make your life a dream when people actually know they're being held accountable to the things that they say they're supposed to be doing.
Yep. And I think that's where a platform like ClickUp really comes in, because you can get clear about what the task is and enter a due date on it. It is impossible to hold someone accountable to an unclear expectation. So just by having it in the platform, it creates clarity. The only thing is, don't overuse due dates. Some people chuck in like a nice to have due date. I really tend to avoid people doing that. I'd much rather have really clear, this is when it must be done by, so that we can actually maintain accountability rather than diluting accountability.
And often as well, like in trying to maintain a level of transparency across your business and, multiple departments within your business, you will find that having that in place helps people understand where that certain workflow is at in terms of, okay, well, it's currently in this department. Like, for example, in our business, when someone comes on board and we have to go through the scope and the setup and all that kind of stuff, and one of the first things we do is get all their copy into copywriting, right? So it's useful for development to know, okay, cool, well, this is where the copywriting's at. This is where the process is, copywriting's at in so we can follow that up, because we're going to need that copy next week because the website's going to be finished. And marketing then needs to know, okay, cool, well, we need to know when the website's going to be finished because like our SEO program is ready to go. So everything needs to speak, and people need to have that level of transparency and understand where these tasks are at, so that so it's relevant to what they need to be doing from a task management point of view, right? So it just holds the whole team accountable on a macro level, but then mine on micro level that breaks it down into the department, which then it can be broken down into the individuals. So, whatever that might look like for you. And I mean, we're speaking with, obviously there's tradespeople, builders and stuff out there. This is their life, right? Like their entire life is about project management. How do we make sure that this job is run on time and to budget? Like this is not a new conversation for trades. Maybe more so for, job-based trades, but regardless, it's still relevant. And and I strongly encourage you guys to like listen to what Justin's saying here and adopt this.
It creates a sense of trust as well within the team. I was just thinking of the sports metaphor. If you ever played a sport and to a pretty decent level, you get to know your teammates and you just know they're going to be there. When you pass the ball, like you don't even have to look, they're just going to be there. And you can develop the same thing within your team, where each team member just knows that the other person's going to have that bit ready for them when they need it. And so instead of messing around or going to find out, they'll just do their own bit. And just it's kind of beautiful when you see two things that are just come together at exactly the right time because they both trusted each other that the other one would have the job done.
And it kind of eliminates as well, to a degree, that whole, they said they were going to do it, although apparently they've done that. Like none of that exists anymore because it's not apparently, or it's not they said they would. It's like it's done or it's not. And you just open up the app on your phone or you log onto the computer and you can see it. So you don't have to have any of those conversations. And if something's overdue, there's a big notification that comes up saying it's overdue and everyone knows about it. So again, like it sort of pulls everything out of the dark there and puts everything into broad daylight in terms of what needs to be done and who needs to be doing it. And like Justin says, like if you've got team members you can rely on, they're there, they're going to be doing it. And they know that when it's assigned to you, like things are going to be done. And if they're not, you'll be able to see whether they're not, and you'll be able to query why. And if they have been done, but they haven't actually been done, like we see that as well. People are checking boxes in project management, but not actually doing the thing. And then you go, okay, hang on, you were accountable to this. You said you did this, but it hasn't been done. Explain that. Like it gives you a point of bearing to go back to say, well, hang on a minute, like you've said you did this, you're accountable to it, you haven't done it, why not give me, explain it, So again, it just brings a layer of transparency across deliverables.
And the last one's probably a little bit advanced, but when I build a work management system, I'm also thinking about dealing with what I call human foibles, right? I don't expect people to be Superman or Superwoman. Our brains are not computers. They're these like organic things and they do a bunch of weird stuff. And that's okay. And I like to build that into the system so that the things that come up with people aren't going to break the system. So for example, overwhelmingly long to-do lists, I know demotivate people and people work slower when they're demotivated. So I will build that in like, okay, how do we break them into chunks so that they're winnable, so that people have wins throughout the day where they've done this bit, done that bit, done that bit. Because again, lack of small wins, having no clear win condition, again, slows people down. It's easier to do things when you know you have to. So for example, we're just talking about this, I avoid unclear assignment. So for example, one way of doing that is you can say, hey, you three, please all do this task. Well, now no one's in charge because everyone thinks the other two are going to do it. Or having spongy due dates that they know that they don't have to really respect. So the clearer things are, I find for myself, if I've got something I absolutely must be done tomorrow, I'm going to get that done. Whereas if there's something that I maybe need to do in the next week, I'm not doing that today. There's no way.
Yeah.
So we can build those kind of things into the system to make it easier for your team to do well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's so easy to slip into that trap of sort of, I know I toy with doing it ourselves. I mean, I guess there's layers to it, right? Like you could say to like, to your, like a department in the business, this project needs to be delivered on this date, but then, the accountable steps within, you can't really assign that to a department. It's got to be assigned to individuals that are going to actually do the thing.
Yeah.
And I found like I've tripped up on that in the past, I was sort of trying to assign things to departments thinking they were going to get done. But like you said, I just assumed they were going to do it. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. you can assign things to a driver. So that's usually a project manager or the department head, the person who is ultimately responsible, and will then assign that out and chase up the individual people.
Correct.
Yeah. But otherwise, it has to be individual people.
Yep. So I know, guys, this has been quite a perhaps like a deep conversation for you. Like I mentioned in the last podcast, you might be ready for this right now. You might not be. We're not here. We're not trying to confuse you with things, and we're not trying to give you more things to do. Essentially, we're just trying to help you build process within your organization, so it's not so dependent on you, and it's scalable, and you can facilitate growth. You can facilitate recruitment. You can do all these kind of things based on the right things being in the right place. So yes, this is a very big conversation, and we've dived into it. We've broken it down into 3 little episodes here. But in truth, the purpose of this is not to we're not expecting you to be able to grab this by the horns and run away and do this. We just want to give you enough information to be dangerous, and enough information to understand, okay, well, this is what I want to achieve. I may not know how to do it myself, and I may not know how to roll this out. That's okay. But just understand, I suppose, the dynamic of what we're talking about here within this project management, within this system space, because that will really help you gain clarity as to how you design it for your business. If you need more help with it, you can go reach out to someone like Justin, and he can help you deploy these things. But even he is going to sit down with you, and he's going to say, okay, tell me about the bottlenecks, tell me about the things. So the purpose of this podcast series was really to help you define those things, so that when you are in a position to take action, whether it's yourself or whether it's with someone like Justin, you can answer the questions that they're going to have to ask you. Justin, thank you so much for your time. This has been such a great podcast series, and one that I've been wanting to do for so long. Again, right time to do it, I suppose, based on the fact that we're so heavily, in this space ourselves. Where can people get hold of you?
Yeah, so I am at workmanagement.tools, TOOLS. I think all my stuff goes from there. There's a couple of courses, but yeah, there's a contact form. Feel free to reach out if you need any help with any of this. We did definitely cover a lot, and I wanted to point out this is what's possible. You don't have to have all this done tomorrow. Where you're at right now is totally fine. This is just stuff that you can work towards over time.
Sure, yeah, and again, like I mentioned, I think it was in the last episode. You probably you don't want to have all these things done tomorrow, because it's a process. You want to do these things progressively, otherwise it will lead to overwhelm. The way that we're suggesting, the way Justin suggests to do things is step by step, because it's digestible, and you can do something, you can learn it, and you can move on to the next thing, and then everything gets used efficiently. If you try and do everything too quick, and same with process creation, same sort of thing. There's no point in going out there and creating 4,000 processes tomorrow, because you need to do them as you're going through them, right? So but getting started is the key. Like anything, right? Just get started, because once you start gaining a little bit of momentum here, you will see ways and areas that you need to improve, and that will equip the conversations looking forward as to how that happens, whether it's tech or team or whatever it might be, right? I do encourage you guys, go and check out the free training. Head across to the siteshed.com, head across to the show notes. If you go to workmanagement.tools/siteshed, there's a promo code there called siteshed, and you can actually enter that and you get access to the course for free. If you're in the space of doing this now, I'm not going to say go do it just to waste. If you're not ready for this, don't waste your time. But if you are in the space for doing this, go and look at the training. There's also going to be in the show notes, there'll be an affiliate code to ClickUp, which you can use if you want. I think you get some benefit for that. I just can't remember what it is, but it'll be in there if you want to use it. If you don't, I don't care, whatever. The point is just get started. And if you want to reach out to Justin at workmanagement.tools is the email. Again, all the links are going to be in the show notes. I'm going to invite Justin into the Facebook community as well, guys. So if you want to have conversations with him in there, you can do that. Anything project management related, he'll be in there to answer questions. But otherwise, again, just get started. Don't overcomplicate it. Go back to the first episode and start there. And bit by bit, start deploying what we've taught you, and I can promise you what this looks like today when you get started and what it looks like in 12 months if you create a cadence out of it and you apply some consistency and you actually do what you like, use the process and follow the process and evolve it. You will be absolutely blown away with what your business looks like in 12 months time. I can 100% promise you. Justin, thank you so much. Really appreciate all your time. I appreciate all your help over at the, within our business. And I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that you'll be able to help whoever comes to you. So, mate, we'll look forward to working with you in the future. I look forward to collaborating future, maybe on some further content. And thank you.
Cheers. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this topic, you'll definitely enjoy episode 319, where I explore how I use project management to equip my team members for success, and episode 300, where I shared some insights into how I use project management to organize my day and how I help my team also do the same thing. We put some links to both of those episodes within this post, so go check them out. Be sure to subscribe, turn your notifications on so that you don't miss out on any future content. And I would love to hear your feedback on this topic. Anything related to project management, just leave us some comments within this post. It'd be great to hear what your experiences are, good or bad. We look forward to chatting to you in upcoming podcast episodes.